Hey everyone, it's Simon Rollings here from The Complete Presenter, and today we're going to talk about getting your voice heard in a virtual meeting. Let's face it, it was sometimes bad enough when we were in real face-to-face meetings, but normally if we kept trying to speak and not succeeding, at some point someone would probably realise, take pity on us and kind of defer to us so we could actually get our voice into the meeting. Virtually, as you probably know, it's even more difficult and sometimes seemingly impossible. Well, today we're going to look at 4 tips ranging from the subtle to the nuclear of how to get your voice heard in that virtual meeting. So let's kick off with number 1. So number 1 is super subtle, but a lot of people just forget about doing it. Every platform that I know of gives you an option to change your mic settings. So at the very least, make sure that when you speak into the mic, and test the mic settings as well, when you speak into it, that your voice is actually loud enough. Because sometimes people are in meetings, and you've probably heard it yourself, where people are speaking and you have to really kind of listen in to what they're saying. So make sure your mic is not one of those. And of course, the slightly more subtle way to help things out is maybe up your mic level. So you're perhaps one of the louder people, so that when you speak, perhaps it kind of takes over as you know, with Zoom and Teams and all that sort of stuff, all those different platforms, they sort of defer. You kind of end up listening to the loudest person. So yeah, very subtly, maybe just up your mic setting so that you're one of the more louder voices, so that when you speak, people perhaps might just defer to you. So yeah, check out whatever platform you'll use. I almost guarantee you, certainly all the big ones that I know of, will have either right at the very start, will actually offer you to test your mic settings, and absolutely do that. But if not, check it out in settings somewhere and you'll find it, and you will be able to up your mic volume. So give that a try first and foremost. So on to number 2, and again we're using the system for us. So whatever platform you're using, I'm fairly certain there's going to be a raise hand icon. So it's quite difficult to ignore someone that has their virtual, so I don't mean like physically just raise your hand, although you could do that, that's one way to go, but it's really difficult to, as someone who runs meetings a lot virtually, it's really difficult to ignore if someone's got, and not that I would anyway, but it's difficult to ignore someone that has their virtual hand raised. So again, just check out the platform you're using. And if you're thinking to yourself, well, no one uses that at the moment, isn't that going to be weird? I promise you, if you start using it and people eventually will go, oh, hang on, Simon, you've got your hand raised, did you want to say something? And you get your point in, I promise you other people will start using it as well, and whether they overtly thank you or just secretly thank you, you might well set a trend in your company. So yeah, find out where that raise hand button is and do not be afraid to use it. Number 3 is use the chat function. Again, you might not necessarily be using it in your meetings that you have, but it's there. And if you really are struggling to get your point in, just put it into chat and press enter, and again people will see it. At the very least, the host of the meeting should have a notification that pops up. Again, certainly I have that in all the different platforms that I've used for presenting and training. So yeah, worst case scenario, just whack it into chat, and if no one kind of mentions it, just repeat it, just copy and paste it, and just keep doing it until at the very least people are just like exasperated by the fact that a chat thing keeps coming up. This, as I said, this is ranging from the subtle, turning your mic up, through to the very nuclear. This is obviously going down the slightly more annoying child route of kind of, can I have a rabbit, 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 until the poor parent just goes, yes, you can have a rabbit. But nonetheless, it's very likely to work. So if you want to get your voice in the meeting and the first 2 haven't quite worked, then use the chat function and just keep posting that question until someone actually welcomes you in, and you can unmute yourself and get in there. So finally, we come to the nuclear option, and this works on the brilliant basis, particularly in Britain, where generally speaking, we're very polite. You know what it's like back in the day when we used to be able to go out and intermingle and stuff. If we got to the door at the same time as someone else, like the shops, we could often be there for like 2 minutes whilst we go, no, after you. No, please, after you. And you will know on virtual meetings that we'll often start speaking at the same time as one another. And inevitably, the more polite person will defer. And unfortunately, often the more dominant person either doesn't realise they're doing it or just does it and just carries on talking until they've got the floor. It's not a particularly nice tactic. However, it is a tactic. So if you have the gumption to do it, and if the first 3 have failed and you have to get your voice into that room, then the nuclear option is to be the one that doesn't stop talking. It takes some real confidence to do it, but I promise you, at a certain point, the other person will stop because it's really awkward. You know yourself, when 2 people start talking. I have a very good friend who, bless him, doesn't do work Zoom meetings, and we had a catch up with some friends a few weeks back, and I'm sure he didn't mean to do it, but every single time, and it tended to be me, every single time that our other friends would ask a question, both me and him would kind of answer at the same time, and then he would just carry on. And it takes a lot for me to not be able to get my voice into the room, but nonetheless, he absolutely nailed it. So yeah, it's not the nicest tactic. It's certainly not the most polite tactic, but if used very, very infrequently, and if you've genuinely got something of real value to add, then just gird yourself and be the one that just doesn't stop, and you hopefully will end up having the room. So there we are. There's my top 4 tips for getting your voice into a virtual meeting. I hope you found them useful. If you have, if you can like and share and subscribe, that would be great. If you've got any comments, please do leave them below. And if you haven't already, why not join up to my Facebook group, which is, I'll put the link below, but it's basically called Complete Presenters, where we talk about all this kind of stuff to try and help us be the most effective communicators. And it's going to be a really positive, helpful group. And it's a bit of fun in there as well. So please do feel free to join that. It would be lovely to see you in there. Other than that, hope this has been useful and look forward to seeing you again.